that, 47 years ago today, he reached what would have been the highest heights of his life at that time, and it was followed immediately by intense tragedy. And he's seen so much tragedy time and time again. And I think probably you'll hear this from him tonight, talking about the fact that at the end of all of that tragedy, there is still hope. He is in the latter part of his life, and he is finally getting to a place where he perhaps wanted to be about 30 years ago.
So the motorcade is pulling in, we're told. Let's check back in with Arlette Saenz, who covers the Biden campaign for us. I guess we should start saying the Biden transition team for us. Arlette Saenz, who's in Wilmington, Delaware. Arlette, I just saw former Delaware Governor Jack Markell behind a mask. That's how big a political nerd I am. Are you seeing other individuals in the crowd?
Yeah, this is really a hometown crowd who has come out to see Joe Biden deliver his first remarks as president-elect. A little while ago, I spoke to Congresswoman Lisa Blunt-Rochester, who was one of his earliest supporters from day one, and she was really overwhelmed with this moment that they are facing today. You are seeing people of all ages here coming out to support the former vice president, not just right here on site, but also those hundreds of people that are gathered outside. And one thing I also want to note is talking a little bit about the campaign staffers on this campaign. Back in March, during the coronavirus, the campaign shuttered their operations in Philadelphia, which scattered hundreds of campaign staffers back to their homes across the country. So oftentimes, these victory events is that moment of celebration where these staffers who have poured their hearts out into these campaigns are able to come and celebrate. But for many of them, they are not able to be here tonight because of the coronavirus pandemic. You do have a small team of advisors, advanced staff who are running the show here in Wilmington, but there are many, many staffers who are celebrating across the country for all of their hard work. And one of those groups even had a virtual dance party in the middle of the afternoon to celebrate Joe Biden's victory. But in just a short while, we're going to hear from the now president-elect Joe Biden. This is a moment that has been decades in the making for him and his family. And really, this is such a personal moment for the entire Biden family after all of these losses that they've endured. And Joe Biden has been knocked down many, many times, but has continued to persevere as he has tried to get to this highest office. And over the course of the campaign, Biden has stuck to that message of this being a battle for the soul of the nation and that he is the person to unite it. It was Joe Biden's moment. He is the perfect person to take on these challenges that are currently facing the country, including trying to bring together what is a very, very divided nation. And we're going to hear a bit from him later tonight on how he hopes to achieve that in the coming months and years. And I talked about this a little bit before, but it's also been part of two history-making tickets. He served alongside Barack Obama, the first black man to become president. Joe Biden often talks about how right before the inauguration, President Obama came down on the train from Philadelphia and picked him up right here in Wilmington to take him with him to the White House. And now Joe Biden is going to be taking the first woman of color, with him to the White House. This is a moment that is not lost on Joe Biden. He has talked about how he wants to be a bridge to the next generation, and that is something that you've seen in his choice of a vice president, but also as he has tried to reach out and trying to bring together people of all stripes within the Democratic Party and in the country. Joe Biden overcame many contentious battles during that Democratic primary. He brought his party together heading into the general election, and now he is faced with that task of uniting the country, something that those around him really believe that he's primed for.
Well, it's a tall order, but it's certainly one that he's been talking about for quite a long time, Arlette. Let's go to our other reporter covering the Biden-Harris campaign, Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, a historic night, really I think it's fair to say the beginning of the Biden presidency starts tonight.
No question, Jake. And watching the motorcade just go by, this is the third time this motorcade has traveled this route since Wednesday. He came here in the early morning hours of Wednesday morning. Been watching this. He knows. He was fairly confident this was coming, but has never taken the ride he took tonight or the speech he will give tonight. I'm so struck by just remembering 12 years ago, the turmoil that he and then Barack Obama inherited in the country in an economic sense. It is repeated certainly in the coronavirus sense, and he knows the difficulties he is facing. So this is the last night of celebration for Joe Biden. The hard work has already begun, but the challenges have already begun. Even if the nation was not divided, even if the nation was not questioning the presidential election, which many are, millions of Americans are, probably tens of millions of Americans are, there's still challenges. So that is his burden tonight. But I am told that he is going to give space to President Trump. He is going to give space to Republicans to come along and accept his victory. So that is the Joe Biden that we know from his years in the Senate, even if today's divided America and divided Washington. But that is what we're going to hear tonight, saying that we are Americans. He will be talking to those who didn't vote for him, as well as those who did, Jake.
And while we wait for President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris to speak, and we anticipate that Joe Biden will talk about the need to heal the country, it is worth noting that there is a good chunk of the Republican Party, the leaders of the Republican Party, not individual Republican voters, but the leaders of the Republican Party, who seem quite determined to not let this happen. We see governors, Republican governors, giving credence to just these completely mendacious, these false allegations about voter fraud, just non-existent. We see members of Congress putting forward all sorts of lies about the election. This really was a remarkably smooth and efficient election. It took a little longer than people wanted. But I mean, I wonder about the potential for any sort of healing or reconciliation when you have the leaders of the Republican Party, many of them, not all of them, many of them, determined not only to refuse any handshake, any offering of a hand, not just refusing, but lying and smearing about what happened for whatever reason, because they want to run for president in 2024, because, I mean, who knows what the reason is? It doesn't even matter.
There is a reason why the protocol for hard times since George Washington has been to cede the stage and do it in a very public way. And the reason is to encourage that person's supporters to, to say it's okay. It's okay. We're going to be okay because we are still Americans. And certainly not in our lifetimes. We've never seen that not happen, and we don't expect this to happen anytime soon. Certainly at least until the president goes through the process that we've been talking about for 5 days that his aides talked to us about. That process is part of it. Being convinced that these lawsuits that his lawyers are trying to leak. Then the next part of the process is electors the results have to be certified by all 50 states and territories. And then, so the process goes along. That is part of the Constitution. Electors are chosen, so on and so forth. At some point in that process, the president's got to realize, assuming that it goes smoothly, which there's no reason to think it won't, the president's got to realize the jig is up. And it is still an open question, to your point, Jake, whether or not that realization is accompanied with communicating that to his people. And it is so important. And in the absence of that, what Joe Biden is going to do tonight is reach out himself.
I don't think it will be accompanied by for him, and in the practice of this country, it is just not. And many presidents have perhaps, I imagine, maybe thought that they could just push back until the very last moment, and they have chosen not to. They've chosen not to because holding on to power for the sake of power is exactly the kind of thing that our founders tried to protect against. And I think every president up until this moment has recognized that and has ceded the stage when it was necessary. Again, he may not do it, it probably will not matter, but I think we should just recognize that there is a new standard that is being set by this president and endorsed by Republicans in Washington, and it should not be that way.
Right.
It has not been
He's
that way.
not a 7-year-old kid who lost an ice skating competition, and we all need to understand that feelings have been hurt and, that there's some maturation that we shouldn't expect. He is a 74-year-old president of the United States, and he lost re-election. And you know what? That's okay. That happens. It happened to George H.W. Bush. It happened to Jimmy Carter. It's happened to 8 other previous presidents, and he's the 11th to not be reelected. His emotional needs, frankly, are irrelevant, and I don't think that we should, I think we should note it because it's historical, but I don't think we need to bend over backwards and pretend that the country moving on and MAGA nation moving on depends upon what Joe Biden does. Like, Joe Biden is going to do what he can, and if a chunk of the leaders of the Republican Party want to drag the nation down with them, that's up to them.
Yeah.
But he's going to be governing, and they can either join him or get out of the way.
One of the big reasons we are looking at the pictures we're looking at, and we're preparing for a speech from President-elect Joe Biden and not a speech from President Trump talking about his second term, is because of the characteristics that you were both talking
Exactly.
about. It is because he came in with a lot of promise that he was a norm buster and somebody who is going to do things differently and drain the swamp and all of the bumper sticker lines that he had, and that's not how he governed. And he didn't reach out, and there was no sign of the art of the deal except for a few. There were a few exceptions, but for the most part, it was about him, and it was about his wants and his needs, and not so much about the country. And the reason we saw so much fervor and enthusiasm in this election was to get rid of that and to return to the notion of maybe not every institution is great, and there certainly need to be changes and updates, but to return to the basic tenets of what this democracy and what people expect the presidency to be about.
One of the things, to turn it to a friendlier subject, one of the things that I think the American people who have not been paying super close attention to this race or to Joe Biden's career over the past, I don't even know how long it's been, 47 years, might not realize is he's an okay speaker. He's a fine speaker. He's not Barack Obama. But one of the things that he missed a lot during this race because of the pandemic was he is, as he calls himself, a tactile politician. He likes to get in there and talk to people. Now, sometimes he loses his temper a little bit on rope lines. If somebody says something to him he doesn't like, he can, but there haven't been a lot of moments like that because there hasn't been a lot of campaigning like that. His best moments, and we've seen some of these in viral videos on social media, his best moments are when he meets somebody who has an emotional need of some sort. The little boy that we heard from.
Like the CNN town hall with Anderson when he talked to
the little boy who had the stutter,
yes.
who spoke at the Democratic convention. There was a virtual video not long ago of the surviving family members of the coach that was at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and one of the little boy, the son of the coach who had been killed, has suffered from disability, and just he's so good in that setting, and the American people haven't really seen it because he's been denied that kind of campaign. I don't know how good a speech he'll give tonight. I assume it will be perfectly lovely, but
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. So, thank you. Good evening. So, Congressman John Lewis, before his passing, wrote, "Democracy is not a state guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it." To guard it and never take it for granted. And protecting our democracy takes struggle, it takes sacrifice, but there is joy in it, and there is progress, because we, the people, have the power to build a better future. And when our very democracy was on the ballot in this election, with the very soul of America at stake, and the world watching, you ushered in a new day for America. To our campaign staff and volunteers, this extraordinary team, thank you for bringing more people than ever before into the democratic process. And for making this victory possible. To the poll workers and election officials across our country who have worked tirelessly to make sure every vote is counted, our nation owes you a debt of gratitude. You have protected the integrity of our democracy. And to the American people who make up our beautiful country, thank you for turning out in record numbers to make your voices heard. And I know times have been challenging, especially the last several months. The grief, sorrow, and pain, the worries and the struggles. But we have also witnessed your courage, your resilience, and the generosity of your spirit. For 4 years, you marched and organized for equality and justice, for our lives and for our planet. And then you voted. A clear message. You chose hope and unity, decency, science, and yes, truth. You chose Joe Biden as the next president of the United States of America. And Joe is a healer, a uniter, a tested and steady hand, a person whose own experience of loss gives him a sense of purpose that will help us as a nation reclaim our own sense of purpose. And a man with a big heart who loves with abandon. It's his love for Jill, who will be an incredible First Lady. It's his love for Hunter and Ashley and his grandchildren and the entire Biden family. And while I first knew Joe as vice president, I really got to know him as the father who loved Bo, my dear friend who we remember here today. And to my husband, Doug, and our children, Cole and Ella, and my sister Maya, and our whole family, I love y'all more than I can ever express. We are so grateful to Joe and Jill for welcoming our family into theirs on this incredible journey. And to the woman most responsible for my presence here today, my mother, Shamala Gopalan, who is always in our hearts. When she came here from India at the age of 19, she maybe didn't quite imagine this moment. But she believed so deeply in an America where a moment like this is possible. And so I am thinking about her and about the generations of women, Black women,
I am black woman.
white,
Habreedteeda ay
Latina,
gabadhaan.
Native American women who throughout our nation's history have paved the way for this moment
Eedadeeda
tonight.
ka wado.
Women who fought and sacrificed so much for equality and liberty and justice for all, including the Black women who are too often overlooked, but so often prove they are the backbone of our democracy.
That's true.
All the women who have worked to secure and protect the right to vote for over a century, 100 years ago with the 19th Amendment, 55 years ago with the Voting Rights Act, and now in 2020 with a new generation of women in our country who cast their ballots and continued the fight for their fundamental right to vote and be heard. Tonight I reflect on their struggle, their determination, and the strength of their vision to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And I stand on their shoulders. And what a testament it is to Joe's character that he had the audacity to break one of the most substantial barriers that exists in our country and select a woman as his vice president. But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities. And to the children of our country, regardless of your gender, our country has sent you a clear message. Dream with ambition, lead with conviction, and see yourselves in a way that others may not, simply because they've never seen it before. But know that we will applaud you every step of the way. And to the American people, no matter who you voted for, I will strive to be a vice president, like Joe was to President Obama. Loyal, honest, every day, thinking of you and your family.
Get something.
Because now is when the real work begins. The hard work, the necessary work, the good work. We send people to root out systemic racism in our justice system and society, to combat the climate crisis, to unite our country and heal the soul of our nation. And the road ahead will not be easy, but America is ready, and so are Joe and I. We have elected a president who represents the best in us, a leader the world will respect and our children will look up to, a commander-in-chief who will respect our troops and keep our country safe, and a president for all Americans. And it is now my great honor to introduce the President-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Woo-hoo! Wow.
My fellow Americans, and the people who brought me to dance, Delawareans. I see my buddy Senator Tom Carper down there, and I think Senator Coons is there, and I think the governor's around. And is that Ruth Ann? And that former Governor Ruth Ann Minner. And most importantly, my sisters-in-law, my sister Valerie. Anyway. Folks, the people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory, a victory for we the people. We've won with the most votes ever cast for a presidential ticket in the history of the nation. 74 million. What I must admit has surprised me. Tonight, we're seeing all over this nation, all cities and all parts of the country, indeed across the world, an outpouring of joy, of hope, renewed faith in tomorrow and a better day. And I'm humbled by the trust and confidence you placed in me. I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify. Who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States. And work with all my heart, with the confidence of the whole people, to win the confidence of all. And for that is what America, I believe, is about. It's about people. And that's what our administration will be all about. I sought this office to restore the soul of America, to rebuild the backbone of this nation, the middle class, and to make America respected around the world again.
Wow.
And to unite us here at home. It's the honor of my lifetime that so many millions of Americans have voted for that vision. And now, the work of making that vision is real. It's a task, the task of our time. Folks, as I said many times before, I'm Jill's husband. And I would not be here without her love and tireless support of Jill and my son Hunter and Ashley, my daughter, and all our grandchildren and their spouses and all our family. They're my heart. Jill's a mom, a military mom, an educator. And she has dedicated her life to education. But teaching isn't just what she does, it's who she is. For American educators, this is a great day for you all. You're going to have one of your own in the White House. And Jill's going to make a great First Lady. I'm so proud of her. Well, I'll have the honor of serving with the fantastic Vice President who you just heard from, Kamala Harris.